What's cracking, big dogs? Welcome back to the HQ. I'm actually in my bed right now. It's kind of late. It's Thursday evening. I almost didn't get this video out because I've been working on the draft guide all day, and I cannot wait to get it to you guys. It is dropping either on July 8th or July 9th. The pre-order price, this is the last, it's Friday? Sunday night at midnight, the pre-order price goes up. It is gone. So if you want to grab my draft guide for a pre-order price, you got to do that before July 1st at midnight. It's going to be good. It's got my rankings, my tiers, my sleepers, busts, must draft, all that good stuff. If you watch my videos, you've heard me plug it in way too many times already. So we're just going to get into another mock draft, and I'm going to do a Dynasty mock draft today. I did a rookie draft, but this is going to be a full Dynasty draft, and the reason I'm doing it now, I've had some – I forget who it was, but there's a girl, I can't remember her name, who keeps commenting and asking me to do this mock draft. And believe me, I wanted to do it for you, sweetheart. Believe me, I did. But I had the subscribers-only Dynasty draft in the works. We hadn't started it yet, so I didn't want to give everyone in my league all my tips and tricks and stuff like that. And we actually just started about, 3 or 4 days ago. So we're in like the 11th or 12th round of the Dynasty draft. So by that point, most of the good picks are kind of up by now. So we're going to do a full Dynasty draft. And if you guys have not done Dynasty drafts, I highly, highly recommend you doing so. I'm in the middle of a few right now. And I just started doing them last year. And a Dynasty draft, in case you guys are unaware of them, is basically you pick a gigantic team, right? The draft is a huge part of you draft your team. It's usually anywhere from like 26 to 30 players on your team, and that's the draft. It's like 26 to 30 rounds, and you keep the same guys on your team for forever, right? You're pretending to be basically a franchise owner. You're a dynasty owner, so you have the same players year over year, and they're your team. But the difference between dynasty and redraft is obviously you have the bigger squad, so the waiver wire is way tinier, right? So when you're picking 26, 30 guys on your roster, and most dynasty drafts, the mock draft I'm going to do right now is no defense, no kicker. Most dynasty drafts that I've been in so far don't play defense or kicker, which is great. I don't think you should do that in the dynasty draft. So you could focus on the other skill players and shit. But the thing is, the waiver wire is so small. So, if you have a running back and you get injured, your starting running back gets injured, you can't go pick up the backup from the waiver wire, because there's a good chance he's owned, and there's a good chance the backup's backup is also owned, right? So that's why the teams are super, super deep. So the draft gets deep. You have to know a lot of players, obviously. You have to mix and match how you're drafting veterans, new players, things like that. So I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of ideas and some tips and tricks that I personally do when I'm getting into Dynasty drafts. So I'm going to do it right here on Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard. It's not going to be against any real people because it's really hard to find mock drafts that are full with actual players that want to do a Dynasty mock draft because they're really long and people will bow out. So we're just going to do it on Fantasy Pros, and I'll talk you through pick by pick. Once my subscribers only Dynasty startup league, once the draft has concluded, I will go through my entire draft and kind of give you the thought process behind it as well. We're going to kick it off right now. This is not going to be super flex. There's going to be one quarterback. A lot of Dynasty leagues are super flex. I'm just going to randomize my spot, and I'm picking from the second overall position, and we'll start the draft. So the starting roster is quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, 2 flexes. In a dynasty draft, as I was saying, the waiver wires are very small, so you're not actually doing that much work throughout the season, right? Because there's not a lot of work to be done on the waiver wire. So originally when I started doing Dynasty, I was like, I don't want to take on too many Dynasty leagues because you don't do a lot of work throughout, you figure, it's a team that I have forever. It's going to take a lot of time. You don't do a lot of work throughout the season compared to redraft. Redraft takes up way more of your time throughout the season. So when it comes to Dynasty, the draft is big, but trades are enormous. And I guess this kind of sucks because in the mock draft, I'm not going to be able to trade with computers, but you're trading all the time. Like in my subscribers league, I traded back. I had the 101, so I had the first overall pick. And I traded with the guy who had the 5th overall pick, and I traded back to get the 5th, to gave him the 1st, and then I also acquired another pick in that trade. So you're constantly moving pieces and doing trades and stuff to set you up better for the future, and you trade future draft picks, which is really cool as well. Which makes it a lot of fun, especially if you're doing it with people that you know and are very engaged into it, because you're always in the middle of trade talks and stuff. So Dynasty, you'll notice DeAndre Hopkins went first overall. These top tier wide receivers are widely looked at as the most valuable pieces because when you think about wide receivers in the NFL, their lifespan is a lot longer than running backs, right? Especially the way we're seeing the running back landscape happen now. Le'Veon Bell, not that old, but the Steelers are not looking to extend his contract. We have a lot of people just picking up on rookies, right? They're drafting these rookies early in the drafts, so they don't have to pay them until their second contract, and they kind of release them and then look for a younger back. A lot of these running backs in today's day and age are just replaceable level ones, right? So realistically, you only have them for like 3 to 4 years. Odell Beckham, 25 years old. You're going to have him as your wide receiver one in fantasy for 5, 6, 7 years maybe, right? So the wear and tear that running backs get on their tires makes them a lot less valuable in a dynasty league. So Odell Beckham is my personal number 1 overall ranked player in dynasty league. So I'm happy to get him at the 2 spot. In the subs league, Barkley actually went 1 overall. So we saw Gurley, Zeke, Barkley, Brown, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. You guys could see on the left here the guys that went early. Now, when you're picking these players, you do have to take into consideration their age, but you don't want to rely too heavily on that, right? You don't want to skip on like an Antonio Brown because he's older than, say, like a Mike Evans. And I think Mike Evans is the most overrated dynasty player of the last fucking 17 years. Pretty sure he was going like 102 last year and the summer before that. But a lot of the younger players go off the board earlier than the older players. Like you'll see Julio fall behind Mike Evans because of their age. And you don't want to make a mistake too where you're gravitating too much towards the age. And I see that's a mistake that a lot of people do make. The other thing I like about taking wide receivers early, wide receivers tend to have a lot of value all the time. So, for instance, a guy like Devontae Parker has dynasty value. Like I'm saying, trading is a huge piece of dynasty leagues. So you pick a guy like Devontae Parker, right? And he hasn't done shit in the league, but he'll have trade value in a dynasty league because someone believes that he's going to do something 4 years later. Usually, rookies don't have that kind of span. Also, when you have your first-round picks in rookie drafts, right? Like, if you could trade, you could make moves and stuff to get other people's first-round picks in the rookie draft, that's where you get value in running back. So if you go early wide receivers tend to take a few more years to develop, right? Like when you take rookie wide receivers, they don't usually explode and they're not that valuable in fantasy. However, a good rookie running back can give you incredible fantasy value, like we've seen over the last few years with McCaffrey, Fournette, Kamara, Hunt, Zeke. The names go on and on and on. But in terms of wide receivers, it's not. I know these last 3 years have been kind of, I don't want to say fluky, but they've been terrible, right? But that's not always a norm. But for the most part, we're seeing wide receivers that are rookies don't usually produce right away. So if you go wide receiver heavy early, you're going to get guys that can produce in your lineup. And at the same time, when you're building for the long term, you could use your rookie picks on running backs because they tend to produce in the first year or so. And their value right away, right? Whereas wide receivers, you're usually going to have to wait a year or two. So that's why, I draft a little differently in Dynasty. Like I like to go running back heavy in redraft because those guys are so valuable. But you got to look at things in the long-term view as well, right? So I'm up with the 211. We just saw Green, Amari Cooper, Joe Mixon go off the board. Now I'm looking at it. For me, it's the same thing with quarterbacks. I'm still not looking to go with if it's a 1 quarterback league. I'm still not looking to draft a quarterback until a little later. The strategy might be a little different, but I'll get to that when I start looking at them more seriously. There are 2 guys I love right here at this pick. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get both of them, or if I go with one, I probably won't be able to get the other. So we have Odell here. And then I'm looking at Devonta Freeman, and I'm looking at Stephon Diggs. Because I think personally, I know people think that Devonta Freeman, he had his down year and whatnot. I'm all aboard him bouncing back in a big way. The guy's still just 26 years old. He just signed a 4-year contract extension with the Falcons. So I think he's a solid RB1 for another 2-3 years. They don't want to pick players because they're like, oh, Freeman might be out in like 3 years. It's like, yeah, but you also have no idea. Like Mike Evans might be finished, or his value might be terrible in 3 years as well, right? So you can't always predict that kind of stuff. So I do like to take value now, right? If you're going for a win now kind of mode, and if you think, if you're in a dynasty league where you could easily trade and swap and take advantage of the owners that aren't that good at trading, then you can go and take running backs running backs early, right? Get value through the running backs early in the draft that are the RB1s that are going to produce a lot of fantasy points this year. And then you could always maneuver and move your first round picks if you have good running backs for wide receivers, right? So there's a lot of ways to do it. I think it's about knowing the trade value, about knowing the league that you're in and how well you can trade. Because I'm telling you guys, I can't overstate how important trading is in these kind of leagues. So I love Stephon Diggs because, I mean, he's 24. So he's had a few good years already. When he's healthy, he's a very good wide receiver. Say he breaks out this year and he goes for what, like 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's only going to be 25 next year. And you basically just got a top-tier wide receiver for the next 5 years. He has Kirk Cousins there. So you're looking at a long-term investment in Diggs. And if you hit right on that, you have such a good combo right there of Diggs and Freeman. I'm going to go with Diggs here because I love that combo. I'll have two of my favorite dynasty assets in Diggs and Odell at the wide receiver spot. So we had So we had Diggs, Tyreek Hill just went, Devonta Freeman. Freeman was the other guy I obviously wanted. So the reason I passed on Freeman and the reason I went Diggs, other than what I just basically said, was because this was a very strong year for rookie running backs. I'll probably be able to get one or two of them later in the drafts. So this year in particular is a good year to wait on running backs because you can get a lot of young running backs that are very talented and have a lot of upside. So I'm not exactly sure if I actually make this pick. I probably would. I'm going to go with a Travis Kelce here, and I'm going to tell you why. This is almost identical to the start that I had in the subscriber league. So in that league, I went DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce. I went DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, Travis Kelce. I traded up and got Kelce, but here's why I went with Kelce. When it comes to Kelce, when it comes to the tight end position, especially in dynasty leagues, the position is very hard to fill. As in redraft leagues, right? There's not a lot of players at the top. And Kelce, to me, is the number one ranked dynasty tight end right now. He's younger than Gronk. He's not actually that much younger than Gronk, but there's a lot of red flags surrounding Gronk right now, right? Between him talking about retirement, there's a lot of red flags going on in that Patriots camp overall. You know what I mean? Talking about Tom Brady having issues with the front office and the Bill Belichick. You don't know if these guys are going to retire at any time. If one piece of this New England dynasty retires, it kind of sets in motion a lot of bad shit that can happen in New England. You don't want to have that happening with Gronk. Like, Gronk is obviously going to kill it this year, but wouldn't you rather have Travis Kelce, who just got that new Patrick Mahomes quarterback in the system, and you have Kelce as your guy for the next 5 years probably, and he's going to be the top tight end once Gronk starts falling off. So I love Kelce here because, you locked up that position for the next 5 years, and since the position is so volatile and there's not a lot of good players at the position in fantasy football, there's not a lot of good players in fantasy football at the tight end position. So when you lock that down, like, you're good for a long time. You know what I mean? So that's why I went with Kelce. I just think he's the tight end position in Dynasty, him in particular, is a very good value this year to get your hands on. So now I'm up, and you know what I mean? Like, I went two wide receivers, and not that I have back-to-back picks, but I have this one, and then the turn has his picks. And now I have my pick of a few different young running backs. Sony Michel is a rookie, obviously. Rashad Penny, Ronald Jones, Royce Freeman, Kerryon Johnson. You have your selection of who you want here. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to go back-to-back picks here with them, but actually I lied. I'm definitely going to do this. I'm going to go Sony Michel, who went off the board, Hunter Henry, Sammy Watkins. Okay, so they don't really have updated rankings here because no one would take Hunter Henry that high. Who do we have at wide receiver? No one I absolutely love at value. I like the idea of Marvin Jones, but I'd much rather have a rookie featured running back. And I honestly don't even like Rashad Penny that much because I think that Seattle offense is just going to be on a big decline. But with the two wide receivers and the tight end I have, all I need to do is to have either Sony Michel or Rashad Penny hit, and I'm going to have a very, very, very good starting lineup. And those guys are very young, so it might take one of them a year to develop, and one of them can hit now. So I'm okay with that. And then see a couple quarterbacks start going off the board, and I still go with the late round thing because you can, especially in a league like this, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, look how low down they're ranked, 15 and 18. So you can pretty much grab Drew Brees, who's on 2 more years of his contract, right, and then have a Lamar Jackson after him, or Mitch Trubisky, who in 2 years might be a very good quarterback. So that's kind of my thoughts when it comes to quarterbacks. In these kind of leagues, I would not reach the 5th or 6th round for them. So we saw Marvin Jones, Ronald Jones, a couple young tight ends, David Njoku, O.J. Howard. So here's a good I guess, thing to talk about. Like Larry Fitzgerald, right? He's playing one more year. He's playing one more year. Fitz is a guy who I would take if I'm going to make a run at the championship this year. And I think for the most part, when you're doing a dynasty draft, like within a few rounds, probably within like the first 5 rounds, you're going to be able to tell how good your team is going to be this year, like immediately. Like if you start out going running back heavy, I'm in a super flex league where I picked, I got Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, and Devonta Freeman as my first 3 picks, right? Those are going to be stud running backs for me. So I have a good chance to kind of go for the chip immediately. And a Larry Fitzgerald might be a guy who I'd take as like my wide receiver too, who doesn't have value after this year. But if you're going for the chip this year, then he's someone that you want to grab. But on my team, like I already have Odell Beckham, Stephon Diggs. I'm not sure if Fitz would be the right guy for me, if that kind of makes sense. So who do we have going on? All right, so there's still a lot of these rookie running backs. And one guy I absolutely love, I made this mistake. Mike, if you're watching, big fuck you for taking Kerryon Johnson. I'm still pissed about that. Kerryon Johnson is a guy I want to tell every single one of you guys, if you're in a dynasty league, to get Kerryon Johnson. He is like slowly becoming one of my favorite running backs in this year's class. The opportunity he's going to get in Detroit is not going to be great this year. If I had to gamble on one player who's going outside of the top, 80 picks this year, who's going to be a top 15 pick in fantasy drafts next year, it would without a doubt be Kerryon Johnson. I want Kerryon Johnson in every dynasty draft I could possibly get. He is a very, very, very good runner. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. That is a stacked conference with guys like Darius Geis, with Sony Michel, with Nick Chubb, with a ton of offensive players that are talented. He absolutely tore it up last year. He went for triple-digit rushing yards against teams like Alabama, Mississippi State, like very good defenses. He's like Arian Foster, in my opinion. That's what he looks like when I see him play. He's patient. He doesn't jump off the charts in terms of metrics and measurables and things like that, but he's super patient, great one cut. This Detroit Lions team is stacking up a very good offensive line quietly, and as the years go by and he's back there, they're going to get better. And when you have a guy who's patient, and they have a good offensive line, that means that line's going to get holes for him, and he's patient enough to wait for those holes, and he has great burst, really good burst to get through that, good wiggle too. Kerryon is just a guy I want everywhere because I really think he's going – next year I think is like his big breakout year. So grab Kerryon if you can. And that's what I'm saying. If you go the wide receivers heavy early – look, there's still like Royce Freeman. If you're a Royce Freeman believer, I'm not necessarily a huge believer in him. I like him for redraft this year, but I think he's, I don't know. I don't think he's a great running back, so I'm not sure he's going to last that long. I think he's kind of like just a guy. So you can go with him there. I would be looking at, and also these dynasty leagues that you're in, most of the time the dynasty drafts are not fast drafts or slow drafts. They're through email. I really like this team that I got right here. They're through email, so usually you have like 8 hours on the clock to think of who you want. So I'm just doing this off the top of my head. So some of the shit I might say is actually ridiculous, but just hang with me, folks. Who would I be looking at? Yeah, I'm not looking at quarterback yet. See, my tight end positions are locked up. I don't even need to think about that again until maybe the end of the draft. I'll pick someone late. And I did make a video. It's actually I think the featured video on my channel. If you go to it, it was like the top sleepers for keeper and dynasty leagues. So basically I looked at players whose contracts are expiring next year or who might retire. And I looked at who is behind them on their depth charts and their rosters that would really benefit from the move that's going to happen next offseason. So it was guys like Laney Walker, whose contract is up, and Jonnu Smith is right behind him at tight end, or Tevin Coleman's contract is up, so he might move somewhere and be an RB1. So it's a nice video. It's a nice long video where I break down a lot of different good moves. So if you want to check that out, head to my channel. Write in like late sleep. I'll link it up here, but write like late sleepers for keeper and dynasty leagues, and you'll find it. So that one will be helpful for you guys that are in keeper and dynasty. So these rookie wide receivers are interesting. I'm not really all in on Christian Kirk yet because I don't think he's really going to provide much value this year. What I do like about picking the rookie wide receivers is that, like I said, the value of wide receivers in dynasty leagues, it's very easy to trade them. Because like I said, like Devontae Parker has had value in these kind of leagues for like 4 years, even though he hasn't done shit. You know what I mean? Because people value wide receivers so highly to the point that it's probably overvaluing them a lot of the time. Because you could always be like in a trade, you could always be like, oh, well, wide receivers have more value overall, and like they take longer to develop, so people automatically have that instinct to give these people another chance and be like, blah 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 blah. So I like a lot of the wide receivers more than I like the running backs, but I think I like Alex Collins here. I'm gonna take Alex Collins. He's younger than a lot of these rookie running backs. Actually, he's 23 years old. He's set up to be the lead back in Baltimore. I'm not really sure how it's going to shake out, but I do believe in the guy's talent. So as my fourth running back, I'm okay with Alex Collins here, because if he does hit it, I think it's like a lot of teams don't want to pay their running backs, but I think it's because they're older. So Alex Collins is on a 1-year deal because he was an unrestricted free or a restricted free agent. I forget what the deal was, but he had to sign the 1-year contract with Baltimore. So he's playing on a 1-year contract. And listen, I don't believe in that bullshit like contract theory about how players like play so much better when they're on the contract year. What I would say is players who might have more of an injury history, they're more motivated to get out on the field. That's something that I do believe in when it comes to like the contract year theory. I don't think people are going to be fucking averaging 4.8 yards per carry instead of 4.1 just because they're on a contract year. Like, people play their fucking heart out in football regardless of if they have 3 years left on their contract or 1 year. If they don't play their hardest, they're going to get fucking killed on the football field. So don't tell me that fucking contract years make a difference to a player's outlook, because that's bullshit. I would like to see a study behind that. They'll play on the field. Like, they'll get on the field if injuries is a concern. That's why Jay Ajayi is kind of rising up my ranks a little bit, because he's on a contract year. One thing a lot of people are weary of about him is his fucking knees. First of all, he has not missed a game in the NFL from his chronic knee condition, apparently, but that's a whole nother fucking story here. So now that I have 4 young running backs, well, I really like the stable of running backs for Dynasty. This is nice. Now is when I probably start looking at wide receivers that would be developing in the future. I don't so much need production right now, although I would like some. So I think I know exactly who I would go with here. The first one is going to be Chris Godwin. I love Chris Godwin. I just took him in my Dynasty draft. And I know a lot of people probably don't really know him. He is on the Buccaneers. I'm going to show you his player profile. Player Profiler profile. It's a great resource for anyone that doesn't really know about it. Playerprofiler.com. Look at his metrics. 89th percentile 40-yard dash. So 4.4, 240, 6'1", 210, 89th speed score, good burst, good agility, good catch radius, 95th percentile spark score, breakout age, college dominator, both over the 68th percentile. He is a very, very good athlete, a very, very good all-around player. Yards per target, 9th in the NFL last year, yards per pass route. We saw it at the end of last year. He got a few chances to step in while Mike Evans was out and while Deshaun Jackson was, or I'm not sure if both of them were out, or I forget who was out, but I remember he got the start. He got some play time. The coaches are hyping him up this summer already, saying he's earned a chance to start. I still don't think he's going to start over Deshaun Jackson and 3 wide receiver sets. But I think next year, I don't know what contract Deshaun Jackson's in. I think this might be his last year. But look at the down the stretch. 3 of the 4 last games, he went for 65 yards and more. He went for 200 yards combined in the last 2 weeks, plus a tutty. He's just a playmaker, man. He is an all-around really good athlete, really good receiver, playmaker. And I think it's going to be funny when him and Mike Evans are battling for the wide receiver 1 spot in Tampa Bay. Yeah, you done heard it. Chris Godwin is a better wide receiver than Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's a guy who I want on my Dynasty teams, boy. He was drafted last year from Penn State, reminiscent of your boy Allen Robinson, who gets up and grabs the ball. Once Deshaun Jackson's out of the way, Chris Godwin is going to be a savage. All right, so Kirk went off, then Aaron Jones. And you guys see I'm still not even looking at quarterback, because there are guys like Mitch Trubisky at 19. There are guys like Lamar Jackson at 23. There's still Dak Prescott on the board. So I went that, and then I would be a huge fraud if I didn't take Anthony Miller after the wide receiver breakout video I just put out this week or 2 days ago. Go check that out if you missed it. So now I have 2 solid young wide receivers sitting on the bench. Ooh, there's a big run of wide receivers going off. I was going to take Emmanuel Sanders because he's good. I think he's good for production this year. And now is probably when I start looking at a quarterback, and there's still good picks here, man. There's still good stuff. Good stuff. So one pair I would really like, because Jameis Winston was, prior to the suspension that we just heard got announced today, which means I got to fucking change up my draft guide because I had a few things about him in there. That's neither here nor here. Jameis Winston, I absolutely loved him for having a monster breakout this year. So he played in 13 games last season, 2 of the games, he wasn't actually like the full-time quarterback. He only attempted 13 passes or less. So I discount those when I look at his stats. Basically, he played as a full-time starter as the quarterback for 11 games. And in those 11 games, he averaged 310 passing yards a game and a little under 2 passing touchdowns. So he was on pace for nearly 5,000 passing yards and like 30 touchdowns in the 11 full games he played. Guys, Jameis Winston, had he not been hurt last year, would have been a top 5 fantasy quarterback. A lot of people are discounting that and not really realizing it. I get that he's wild and he passes the ball all over the place and he throws a lot of interceptions. I get that. Trust me, I do. He puts up fantasy stats. So something I would like to do is take like a Jameis Winston here because, one, he's still very young, 24. Most quarterbacks don't even hit their prime until they're like 28 or 29. So Jameis Winston, love that. And the thing about this is having the Dynasty League is obviously he suspended the first 3 games, but that doesn't really matter. You can grab Drew Brees to put up numbers for you for this year, next year, and see what happens with Jameis Winston. So Brees is not going to go till later in the draft. So we could sit on that, and then you could start looking at more younger players, right? Or guys that might put up numbers this year. So the first thing that sticks out to me here, the first guy I see that I really like is I'm going to go with Randall Cobb, because if things break right for Randall Cobb, obviously being the wide receiver 2 there in Green Bay, you just got yourself an absolute steal, someone that can, push you over the edge, someone that you get in the 10th, 11th round that could put up wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers and play in that flex spot. So these guys, Chris Godwin, Anthony Miller, I'm not exactly sure I expect them to be able to produce flex numbers year 1. Randall Cobb, if things break right, again, he would be a flex spot there if one of these younger running backs doesn't pan out. So right now I have a really strong overall team, and I think by next year they're going to be really, really strong if you just look at the players on the squad. So now I'm just creeping. Marquise Sleep, Pierre Garcon, hate him. Zay Jones, John Ross, Jordan Smith, Trick Bond. Okay, Allen Hurns is way too low down here. This is absurd. This is who I would go with, even though he's ranked down there, and I could probably wait. I'm trying to make this as realistic as possible. Guys, I can't stress enough how certain I am that Allen Hurns is going to be the wide receiver 1 in Dallas. Allen Hurns, he's still just 26 years old. The thing about Allen Hurns is, right, he had a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season following his rookie year that he had like 700 yards and 7 touchdowns or whatever. I'm not sure the exact numbers. Did this all with Blake Bortles. He caught 10 touchdowns and went over 1,000 yards with Blake Bortles as his quarterback. Thing about that is, like, I don't want to hear the Blake Bortles truthers. In those first 2 seasons that Hurns put up those numbers, Blake Bortles was bottom 5 in completion percentage and in I forget what the other thing was, but he was horrible during those years, and Allen Hurns still put these numbers up. So if Hurns could do that with Blake Bortles throwing him awful passes, he's probably a pretty good wide receiver. They signed him to be the X receiver, to be Dez Bryant's replacement in Dallas. And I understand it's a low volume passing offense, but Hurns is going to be that guy. They have him running routes all over the field. They say they have him there. He's going to be the X, but they also have him learning all the other positions, which means he's going to be on the field all the time. Thing was, in those years that he broke out and had those big statistical seasons, he played on the outside in like 70 to 75% of his snaps. That was 2014, 2015. They moved him into the slot for 2016 and 17, and that's when you saw all his numbers shoot down. I think putting him back on the outside, he's pretty big. He's like 6'2", 200 and 205 pounds. He's a big receiver that can run on the outside. The Jaguars did an awful job of using him how they should have, thus killing his statistics and killing his value. And now he's back to being a wide receiver 1 on the outside for this Dallas Cowboys offense. A lot of people are, they like Michael Gallup. I get it. He's young and he's the new shiny toy. But Michael Gallup, you guys understand, Michael Gallup is not even going to be starting. He's not even starting. As long as, depending on what happens with the off-the-field stuff with Terrence Williams, it's going to be Hurns and Terrence Williams in 2 wide receiver sets. Gallup will play. He'll play, but he's not going to be a full-time player. That's going to be Hurns. So Hurns is without a doubt the wide receiver to own in Dallas. And again, he's still everything is crazy until it's not. What if Hurns breaks out and then next year he's a 5th round pick in redraft leagues because he's still very young and he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Dallas. Whew, man. Candy, man. What do we got? We got 3 wide receivers. Oh no, my whole bench is 4 wide receivers. I thought I took a running back last round. No, I didn't, but I should. I do have four young running backs. Who would I be looking at now? No, I don't like any of these guys. No. We went down, hurting river. See, that's the other thing too. If you go wide receiver heavy early and things do not break right and you can't get running backs, like it's hard to get running backs later in the draft that have any kind of value, you're going to want to try to grab some early picks for next year. Because again, that's where you find the stud running backs early on. You'll know their value pretty quickly because that's when running backs produce, right? From ages 22 to 26 is their prime years pretty much, with the exception of a few. But wow, I have a lot. See, I'll have a lot to play with. By next year, Miller, Godwin, like their values will probably be very high. So I could probably move them too. You always got to be thinking in terms of trade value too. I really like Traquan Smith a lot. I think once Ted Ginn is off the fucking Saints, and I think Traquan Smith is equally as talented as Cameron Meredith. I'm actually excited to see Cameron Meredith kind of get back on the field and play. Jonnu Smith, Ricky Seals-Jones, I like all them, so I can probably chill on tight end still. Drew Brees, I don't know if he's going to get back to me if I let him sit here. So the thing about that is, like, too, especially if you're picking on the edge picks, like if you're the 11th or 12th pick, or if you're like the first or second, a lot of times, like, teams go on runs, right, where there'll be like 6 quarterbacks in a row or something like that. You have to be weary of that and see, like, the last pick right here was a quarterback, so something tells me that there's going to be a big quarterback run, and I kind of want, like I was saying, Drew Brees as my second quarterback here. So I'm going to take him now because I feel like there's going to be a quarterback run, and that's kind of knowing your league, and that's looking at the other teams and seeing what they have, right, if they're looking to pick a quarterback. So that's another tip, is just look at the other teams before your next pick and see where you can kind of adjust and see if you need to move up and if you need to reach for a pick or something. So I'm going to go Breeze and see what else happens here. There goes another QB. Another QB. There you go. See, like 7 QBs went off the board. So, yeah, I would not have been able to get Breeze. So that was a pretty good move by me, if I might say so myself, playing against the motherfucking computers over here and whatnot. Where did Marlon Mack go in here? I didn't see. Marlon Mack. 9-7. Wow, it's pretty late for a dynasty pick. Damn. It's like later than a redraft. So I'm kind of interested in this Indy offense, or in this Indy backfield, because I'm about 1,000% sure that Andrew Luck is going to be back on the field for week 1. Thus, in my subscriber league, Dynasty League, I took Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton, both of them, because I'm ready for them to bounce back. Luck's going to have the best line that he's had ever playing in Indy. I don't think it's going to be amazing, but it is going to be good, or better than it's ever been. So I'm excited to see him play behind a normal fucking line, because the Colts have just done an awful job of putting the surrounding pieces around him. I still really just see value at wide receiver over value at running back. So I'm going to go with Traquan Smith here. Like I said, I think he's one of the most talented wide receivers in this year's draft. And then I'm actually going to go with Jordan Wilkins, because he's a bigger-bodied running back that the Colts took this year in the draft. And I definitely don't – right now it's Marlon Mack's job to lose. But it's a question mark in the backfield, and I think any one of them can emerge. So in the 15th round, I think you're getting a value at someone that has monster upside in the Colts, in an Andrew Luck-led offense. I might look at a second tight end now, even though just because I don't have, I'd like to have one more that I think I can count on. There was a report that came out really recently that said Delaney Walker said he wants to play like 4 more years. I mean, like, wouldn't doubt it. The guy's a fucking savage, but he's pretty old. He's like 34, 35. I think I'm going to let this sit for one more round. Actually, I kind of have 2 picks in a row. So I'm looking at Ricky Seals-Jones, and I'm looking at Jonnu Smith. Ricky Seals, man, he's a crazy story with Arizona. I think with Josh Rosen coming in, it'd be nice to see them get a little connection going. But even if Sam Bradford's there this year, Bradford is a guy who historically loves to just throw over the middle of the field. Like, anywhere he's gone, basically his favorite target has been one of the guys over the middle of the field. So it's going to be Larry Fitzgerald and probably a lot of Ricky Seals-Jones. And the thing about that is, like, with Ricky Seals-Jones, right, I'm not going to be able to use him because I have Travis Kelce. But if he does have a breakout year, then that's more trade value, because a lot of people are going to be short at tight end, right? The tight end position is one, like I said, hard to fill. It's always hard to fill, whether it's redraft or dynasty. So if you have 2, then boom, you have some good trade bait, and you can move a Ricky Seals-Jones if he's good for a first or second round pick in the rookie drafts, man.
I kind of like Elijah McGuire, to be honest with you, too, because he's going to be. I think he's going to be the third down back. I think Bilal Powell is going to be phased out. I'm not even sure if Bilal Powell still. Is this his last year on his contract? Let me check. Bilal Powell. Yep. So he's a free agent next year. And I think Elijah McGuire will play like a sort of Matt Forte-ish role to Isaiah Crowell. So Isaiah Crowell is going to be, the early down guy. But what was his contract like? Let me see the one he just signed. Well, Elijah McGuire played pretty well last year for a rookie, dude, to be honest with you. He signed a 3-year, $12 million contract. Okay. $6 million guaranteed. So he'll be with the team for a year or two, definitely. But I like Elijah McGuire as a third down back in an offense that's probably going to struggle a lot. He was good in the receiving game last year for, relatively speaking. He did a lot better than I thought he would. Went for over 500 total yards. He had a couple tutties. But, altogether, I kind of like where the upside that Elijah McGuire has. He's, what's his size? 5'10", 215. So he does have like some decent workhorse size, I guess you want to say. Size. Let me check out some of the other backs. I like Chase Edmonds. The thing with Chase Edmonds and Robert Kelly is like they're not going to get any production outside of David Johnson or Todd Gurley getting hurt. I like Edo Smith because he's a guy who's going to be a Tevin Coleman replacement after next year. Jalen Samuels, Boston Scott. Yeah, there's not a lot left at running back right now. But there is still value at wide receiver, bro. There's still value here. A lot of people like DJ Shark. Antonio Callaway has monster upside. A lot of people liked him as their favorite talent in the draft, but he dropped because off the field issues. However, he's already dealing with hamstring issues, that's a huge red flag when it's in the summer. Because those things linger and a lot of people cannot really get their feet back under them. We see it all the time when it comes to hamstrings. It's like DeMarco last summer. Danny Woodhead did it before he ended up getting a serious injury in the first week. But hamstring injuries always lead to more injuries. Did Austin Eckler go? Yeah, damn, he went last pick. Where's Justin Jackson? He probably won already too. I'm going to go with Callaway. No real reason why, but if they trade Corey Coleman, then Callaway's value skyrockets, and you could probably move him if you wanted to. Quarterback. I'll go Chase Edmonds here. Chase Edmonds was a workhorse back at Fordham, but Arizona absolutely loves him. They've been like going nuts about him all offseason. Not really even sure why, but I mean, I get why. He's super talented. He's not going to get that much work behind David Johnson. But if something happens to David Johnson, we really don't know. David Johnson, he's had a couple good years, but he did have that injury at the end of 2016, and then he was injured for all of 2017. So maybe he's a little more injury risky than we might originally say, or we might think originally. So Chase Edmonds, and who's still sitting here? Elijah McGuire's still here. I like that. Oh, man, I like Deshaun Hamilton a lot, Deshaun Hamilton, and I also like Jamon Moore. Jamon Moore was my 4th-round pick. Oh, no, the tight ends are starting to move. See, now is when I probably jump on a tight end because they're starting to move up the rankings. So I'm going to go with Ricky Seals because fuck it, why not? And then I'll go with my man Elijah. I think he's going to have – if you're in a PPR league, I think Elijah's actually going to surprise you with some value this year. All right, so the wide receiver stuck. I'm going to go with Jamon Moore because Jamon Moore was – the Packers drafted 3 wide receivers this year. It's fucking crazy how much knowledge I have about football, actually, now that I think about it. Like, I spend way too much time looking at this shit. So Jamon Moore was the first wide receiver they took off the board this year in the NFL draft, which tells me they liked him more than the other guys. We don't know what's going to happen with the wide receiver battle, right? I already have Randall Cobb. Devontae Adams is the clear number 1. But we really don't know who the number 2, number 3 is, right? We can assume it's Randall Cobb and then Geronimo Allison. But there's for sure going to be some camp battle, man. Geronimo Allison has not proven whatsoever. Randall Cobb has proven that he ain't really shit over the last couple of years. So I like Jamon Moore here. A lot of upside if he can win out that wide receiver 3 spot in this offense with Aaron Rodgers. In the later rounds, I'm really looking for guys who are like direct backups that have high upside. There's no point of taking a veteran guy who might give you like decent RB fucking 3-4 numbers for 2 games this year or something like that. For me, I'd rather have like the Jalen Samuels or the Rod Smith, who is Zeke's backup, right? Or the, Jalen Samuels was Bell's backup. So I'd rather have those guys sitting on my bench than guys who are low ceiling, low floor players. Snead, Decker, Pryor, Brashad. Nothing that I love on the wide receiver front. I'll go with Rod Smith just because I expect Zeke to get probably close to 400 touches this year. That's a lot of touches. So I would say, the more touches, the more likely you are to get hurt. So I'll go with Rod Smith over a Jalen Samuels just for that reason. These drafts are getting deep, people. They start getting really deep, as you can see. People are drafting fucking Matt Forte. It's not even in the goddamn league. That's how fucking deep this shit is. Who we got down here? Anyone random that we like? Remember Tajay Sharp? Remember when Tajay Sharp was a fucking thing? That was crazy. Crazy as hell. I'm gonna go with Mar Darbo. He's always had some hype. There's not a lot of weapons there in Seattle besides Dougie Baldwin. So maybe he has himself a little bit of a year. Seattle's going to be trailing a lot. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. That's all the analysis I have for you on that. And I wouldn't normally take 3 quarterbacks, but Drew Brees will retire in 2 years, and Josh Rosen was probably my favorite all-around quarterback in terms of like a pocket passer in this year's draft. So who knows? What if he develops into the next Aaron Rodgers like people say he's going to? Then you got yourself a nice QB, and Jameis Winston's like one fucking sexual assault titty grab away from being out of the league as well, so a little risque. I think Danny Amendola might low-key lead the Dolphins in receiving. Is that crazy? You guys think I'm fucking crazy? I feel like he's going to occupy that Jarvis Landry spot. What's funny? Looking at all these names, like, every single offseason, there's so many fucking assholes in the fantasy football industry that just write like breakout and sleeper articles about every rookie running back. Like going down this list, I remember there are like breakout articles for every one of like Jeremy McNichols. There's people still like dying on these trains. Elijah Penny, Josh Ferguson. Oh, he's gonna be like really good. Kerwin Williams, yeah, Zach Zenner, bro. Like, dude, people like are so fucking annoying sometimes. Sorry, I'm just like talking to myself. Dude, I don't want anyone. I might skip my pick just because I fucking don't want to take another player out of respect for myself. Let's go to Ardarius Stewart. Just like really, I don't care. I just don't care. That's really my reasoning behind that. So that's it. Oh, there's only 25 rounds for this one, but that's the end of the roster. I mean, I kind of broke down exactly how I thought in terms of wide receivers have more value in dynasty leagues. Running backs are ones that you probably want to get in the rookie draft pretty often, but that's it. I don't know. If you enjoyed the video, give it that thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you want to join a best ball league, you can go to draft.com/BDGE. Use the promo code BDGE and you will get a free $3 entry into a draft. And that's it. And I'll see y'all Sunday live stream, baby. Q&A.